When you look around the world, and I know that your heart encompasses the world, when you look around today, whether it's the United States or any other place, what now is the most crucial, pressing, urgent issue in your experience that you feel we as humankind need to address? What is the most urgent thing you feel?
I can understand why you asked that question, because the complexities of today's world community, of our own society, is such that it seems rather overwhelming in terms of how to take hold and address a single issue, because you're right, you can't do them all at one time. Martin Luther King Jr. took one single issue at a time in terms of focus. He spoke to all of the issues in the course of his work from the very beginning throughout his life. But he took issues that he felt were ready to be attacked, and he tried as much as possible to make sure that he had some successes. In a mass movement, if you want to get lots of people involved, you have to make sure that people have some successes, that they can see that progress is being made. Just to give you an example, and then I'll try to answer the question. When we started finally trying to get the Martin Luther King holiday bill enacted through our Congress, we felt that it was important to mobilize a large body of people, of constituents, out in the national community so that they would be a lobbying force with their congresspersons. And we took the occasion as we mobilized for the 20th anniversary March on Washington, not only to identify legislation within the Congress that spoke to the issues of jobs, peace, and freedom, but we felt that concretely we had to find one that we could get past, because that body of people that came to be 750 more than 750 organizations and somewhat like 500,000 people who came to Washington in 1983 as the 20th anniversary celebration of the 1963 March. And within a few weeks, that bill was passed. The Martin Luther King holiday was enacted into law. And so, what can we do? Well, it is a great challenge and responsibility. And I guess what I tend to do is to tell people about what I feel that would be the most important thing. And I must admit that it is a long-term solution. The reason I've chosen this is because I firmly believe that if we're going to make significant change within our own nation or within the world community, because we can't separate them any longer, is that we must start immediately and everywhere to teach and expose people to the philosophy of nonviolence. And it's the philosophy and the practice of nonviolence must be understood on a very, very wide scale. And if we can do that with enough people strategically placed, I think we can begin to solve these problems that seem so monumental in scope now. And I think it's not only within this country, but I think throughout the world. Despite all the violence that we face in our history, I mean in the history of this period in which we live, I think there's more understanding of the nature of violence, and we have more examples of nonviolence as a success. When we look at India and we study the life of Mahatma Gandhi, and I think that should be studied and understood by students and all people. Gandhi was a part of a majority who was resisting the oppression of a minority, the British, who occupied India at that time. And though the conditions are different in every situation, he was successful over a period of years. We see that example in the Eastern context. And of course, here in America, in a very highly materialistic culture, we have the example of Martin Luther King Jr. with the Civil Rights Movement, and that leadership where we were a minority, which was a much more difficult task, and where we were not trying to drive out anybody and to take over the leadership. We just wanted to share the power and the responsibility. And I think we can document the successes that have been made through that leadership. The problem with us is that somehow we didn't understand, and perhaps maybe as a part of that period, I have to be one of the worst persons who take responsibility, and yet I can say I did it my way. I tried to do what I could to at least to help people understand the relevance of nonviolence, because after Martin's death, everybody had given up on nonviolence. But we continued to talk about it and to develop a center to train people for future generations to deal with the complex problems that humankind will be facing in the future. We started at the preschool level, not just with the elementary schools. Just yesterday, I participated in a conference in Washington, which was held at the Department of Education, and the Secretary of Education gave the leading address, in which we are talking about a curriculum for the school system, the public school system, on Martin Luther King Jr. and why Martin Luther King Jr. should be taught in the schools. I don't see how you can accomplish very much unless you understand how to go about doing it. And that's why I struggle every day to keep the center going and to keep the message of Martin Luther King Jr. alive, because in this period of our history, and perhaps for the next 50 years, I don't think that we'll have a better example. Maybe another 100 years, who knows? And because some of us have taken the time to keep his words and all he stood for alive, I think young people today will begin to relate to that as if there was a presence here. Without the physical presence, we have to create a very strong imitation of that in various kinds of ways. And I see the center as being an extension of that personality. Very difficult to achieve, but we believe in impossible dreams, and we dedicate ourselves to working toward the fulfillment of those dreams.